and the sheriff.
All right, everybody.
Hey, we're just standing by right now for
All
an
right.
update from law
Mic
enforcement.
check, everybody. Everybody good? Got levels?
And parents are
Does everyone make sure I got levels on
at
mine,
the high
please?
school. It's been a
All right,
scary
mic check.
situation.
1, 2.
We can report
No,
that
that's
the three
I don't know whose that is.
children, the three students who were
Oh,
shot
that's
are
Eleanor's. I'm sorry.
stable
All right, but yeah, mic check.
to the school
Everybody want a mic?
district. Now,
Everybody
this
got
happened
white balance?
around 3:30
All right.
near dismissal
Oh, okay, I'm
time
sorry.
here at the high school.
Okay.
And what they're telling
Oh, I'm
us
sorry. I didn't know
is
you were
that a vehicle that was driving by, shots were fired from that vehicle, and 3 students were injured. Like I mentioned, they are in stable condition. Now, we were talking to 2 grads out here who have younger siblings at this high school. They say they were shocked when they got word of what happened out here today.
All right. We're off air, but keep that. Use that.
Yeah, this is the 3rd day of classes here in Orangeburg County. Now we're just standing by for law enforcement and the superintendent to speak and just fill us in on some details. So we'll be sure to get that to you as soon as we get there. Yeah, this is the first time we'll be able to ask them questions, kind of get more details on what happened. We've been seeing the alerts that parents have gotten from the school district and the school, and that's how we learned about this, and how parents as well have been learning about the situation. So, we'll be sure to carry that live. If they come up, we're still standing by for them right now.
Yeah, that's fine.
You could be
Sure,
first
sure,
order?
sure, that's fine.
Everybody good with Representative Jerry Govan? Yes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
If you want to take that off, you can. If you leave it on, you know
Okay.
the rules.
Yeah, we are all social distance.
Okay.
Everybody rolling, everybody good?
Everybody good? Hold on, let me make sure that
Ask him if he married. Is he married? He ain't married either. Yeah, he ain't married either.
Ready to go, Chris? We do this?
sure, why not?
Okay. You guys ready?
Give us your name real quick for those people who don't know it.
State Representative Jerry Govan, House District 95,
Represent Orangeburg.
Orangeburg.
What's this day been like for you as a representative who represents, you're a big school guy?
Well, considering that this incident occurred at my alma mater, Orangeburg-Wilkinson, it's been a very stressful day. I would imagine, and as a parent who's had 3 children graduate from this high school, I share in what many of the parents you see out here gathered here tonight in terms of concern about this particular incident. We all know that this country has seen this type of activity from the East Coast to the West Coast. And we know that there tends to be situations in which you have active shooters and acts of violence on campus. Today we are fortunate because, as I understand it, there were no serious injuries, and that at this very moment the school district, working along with law enforcement and other officials from the county and from the city, are moving those students as rapidly as possible through their process, and then getting them into the hands of their parents where they're being safely taken home. And I just like to take a moment to commend the school district and the officials. Of course, you know, the state has stressed and invested resources and particularly through the State Department of Education, to talk about active shooter drills and to be sure that there are processes in place to ensure that when things like this happen, that there is a proper and appropriate response. And based on my assessment of what I've seen so far, I think the school district, the administration, and also that group that's responsible have done an excellent job.
And what would you say to the parents? We were just talking to some that were saying that this is an area that needs help, that, they do see this sort of violence. What would you say to them that, they feel like they need resources, more help, things like that?
I would say that they're exactly right. I think that right now we need to provide more intervention and prevention services in these communities and whatnot. And I can attest to that, having worked prior to the start of serving in the House as the head of the Assault on Drugs Coalition for Orangeburg County. And that involved a lot of time and effort. I think that what you see happening is that we need to work more with our young people to give them the appropriate alternatives to violence in terms of solving problems. And it's not going to happen overnight. We may not ever eliminate it all, but the fact of the matter is, as concerned parents and concerned members of the community, we have to do what we can, and I don't think we can short the dollars. That's why it's important to have mental health counselors, law enforcement in terms of in schools, in terms of the programs that we've set. We've increased the numbers of law enforcement officers in our schools, mental health counselors, and now I think what we have to do is we have to do more in terms of working with parents directly in terms of addressing those situations and latchkey kids, etc. But again, we need to pause to be sure we get all the facts in terms of what happened here today. I don't have all that. I'm quite sure the sheriff and others will be forthcoming and can make those kinds of decisions and judgments. And they'll give you that. But I think that what we need to be thankful for right now as a community, as parents, as grandparents and guardians, that we have a situation that could have been much worse, but by the grace of God wasn't.
Representative, talk about your first reaction when you heard this was happening in the community that you represent. And then also you said that things need to be done on a state legislative level. What could you do to help out with that?
Well, we need to increase funding in terms of, I think, in terms of parenting and after-school programs, and also in terms of family engagement resources. And I think as a result of COVID-19, actually, and the amount of dollars that are being poured into the school districts, you're going to see more of that. But again, this is not a situation that's just confined to Orangeburg, but all across this state. In urban as well as rural areas, we've seen an escalation in terms of the number of violent acts in terms of our schools. And I think we can't ignore that. We're dealing with the pandemic, but I think this is one other thing that we have to put on our plate to pay close attention to.
Is it ironic how law enforcement, county officials, leadership, city leadership, throughout the whole summer they've been trying to do community engagement with both officers in the community, because they said that there's
Right.
been high violence crime here, and then 3 days later, school, there's a shooting. Is it working? Is it not working? What needs to be done?
Well, I can tell you from having been involved earlier in my career in that process that it's an ongoing process. I don't think you solve those problems overnight. I can recall at one time that we had a serious problem in terms of drug trafficking in this area. I'm talking about in Orangeburg County back in the 80s. There was a serious war on drugs and whatnot. It subsided. Now we're dealing with the issue of gangs and that kind of thing in some of the communities. It's more of it. But again, I think you have to look at it from the standpoint of working on a problem from generation to generation. And I think sometimes we become complacent that when something subsides, then we can just take our foot off the brake. I think it's ongoing because each generation is different, and I still think that we have a lot of work to do, and we just have to be committed to getting it done. Even though some of us are moving on to the next step as far as getting older. We have to work with these young parents, and we have to work with these young people in terms of showing that there's a better way to solve a problem without violence.
So can you be a little more specific in actually describing what plan you have in place to make parents and students feel safe going to school?
Well, one of the things that I see in the district and also in terms of from the state level is that they're beginning to push more family engagement type activities and strategies. They're also you're seeing more of an investment in early childhood education, because I think that some of the issues that you see that spawn this kind of situation are systemic issues that we sometimes forget and don't go on and address in the long term. I'm talking about issues such as poverty. I'm talking about issues such as access to remediation, access to recreation, access to alternatives rather than letting children be isolated. You know, we forget that most young people's minds don't fully develop until they reach age 25. So why don't we look at critical thinking skills and things of that nature? So, you know, I think there are a lot of things that need to be addressed. I think some of those things are. But I think that sometimes we take 2 steps forward and maybe take a step back, if that makes any kind of sense.
Are you frustrated by all this? Parents are frustrated today to wait 4 hours for getting their kids out of this, and they're still waiting in line. I mean, are you frustrated by the process here?
No, you know, that's a great question. And that's one of the reasons why I came out here, because, you know, I know how I would feel as a parent. But I want you to know that you have not only school officials, you have school board members that are in the building trying to expedite this process. You have the superintendent. You know, as a former district employee, I've seen a lot of former colleagues, my colleagues I worked with, in there working as hard as they can to expedite the process. And so I think what tends to happen, we don't see what's going on in the inside as opposed to the crowd that was standing here on the outside. But after they got some of the kinks and bugs out, I think you saw the process has begun to move very rapidly. They have to go through a verification to be sure that each child is with the person that they are supposed to be with. They cannot arbitrarily release a child into the street because of the situation. And so there are protocols in place, and I think the district has done an excellent job of following those protocols while at the same time negotiating in terms of dealing with parents' frustration, because I think we're all a little anxious in terms of if we had a loved one out here that we wanted to get them home. Thank you so much, and thank you all for your patience.
All right. No problem. Y'all let me know when y'all are ready. I will go ahead and let you know we're just going to make a statement. You'll just hear 2 statements. Please understand, we know there are several questions, but we're not going to take any questions right now, okay? So it's just 2 statements, and then we'll follow up with something a little later where you all will have the opportunity to ask questions, okay?
This evening or tomorrow?
It will probably be tomorrow. Most likely it'll be tomorrow.
Is there a reason why we have to wait until tomorrow?
Because that's the instruction. That works? All right. Y'all let me know when you're ready. Hey there. You good? Good evening. I'm Chief Chandra Gibbs with the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office. We had an incident this evening, and we're at this point going to have Superintendent Foster with the Orangeburg County School District, as well as Sheriff Leroy Ravenel, will address you with a brief statement of what transpired earlier today. Superintendent Foster.
Thank you, Chief Gibbs. As mentioned earlier, we had an unfortunate situation happen today, but I want to first of all take my hats off and commend the faculty and staff at Orangeburg-Wilkinson High School. We earlier this year had a training. We planned for these things, hoping that we never have to use them. We've had a coordinated effort with law enforcement across this county since last year, where we have our crisis response plans and we make sure the individuals in the school district are aware, and we have those safety teams. So I'm delighted at the faculty and staff at Orangeburg-Wilkinson High School for their response, getting kids to a safe situation, but also executing the tough parts and getting our kids reunited with their families. Our goal here, and I know it takes a long time, is to make sure that we're able to deliver every single child to their parent. We know that sometimes causes inconvenience in circumstances, but our parents are doing an outstanding job of being patient and appreciating the fact that we want to acknowledge the situation that their children have been through, but also are committed to ensuring that every single child is delivered to a parent and let them know that we appreciate their cooperation. But my hat also goes up to our students. The way our students responded, the cooperativeness that they displayed in ensuring that we were able to effectively get everyone and account for every single student. And we're able to do that at this point. Hats off to the outstanding students of this school and the school administration that have continuously prepared their staff and their students for even the worst situation. So what I want to make sure I get out this evening is that we are extremely thankful for the faculty, staff, and the students in this community. And we'll continue to come together and work through the situation to continue to ensure a high quality education for all of our students. Thank you.
Will there be school tomorrow? Will there be any changes in the school situation?
Hello, I'm Sheriff Ravenel at the Sheriff's Office. First, I just want to say thank you to all the multiple agencies that came out this afternoon after this incident occurred to help us to try to get things in order. The reason why this is a brief, we're making a brief statement and not taking questions is because, as you know, this is a moving investigation. This is a fresh investigation that's still going on. I must say that we have an individual in custody involved with this incident, and the investigation is still going on. I want to say to the faculty and staff at the Orangeburg-Wilkinson High School, because of their quick actions and different things that they did out there at the school today, I believe that saved lives and other students being injured. Like Dr. Foster said, this is something that we trained for. Hopefully we'll never have to use, but today we are standing here, unfortunately, because of this incident. I know some of the parents earlier were getting a little frustrated, and that's understandable. But before we had to document every child to make sure every child was accounted for, to get them out of the school, to bring them here, and to do what we're doing now. And I think that right now the parents, we spoke with them, and they are fine. So again, we thank y'all for coming out, and usually we'll try to come out and help let y'all help us get the message out to the parents and different things. But today was a little different in how we did this. And again, I want to say that right now it's an ongoing investigation, and we get information back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Dr. Sean Foster on that shooting outside of Orangeburg-Wilkinson High School right at dismissal earlier this afternoon. Alicia, let's kind of work our way backwards, starting with Sheriff Ravenel. He says this is an ongoing investigation. He says an arrest has been made in this shooting. However, he did not say who was arrested. So still lots of questions. We don't know if the arrest is someone who was an accomplice or if the arrest was someone who was the shooter. But we do know the 3 children, the 3 students that were injured in this shooting did sustain non-life-threatening injuries.
And their families have been contacted. Sheriff Ravenel also said he spoke to this process because we've had reporters on the field, out there in the field, since all of this began. And one of the big points they wanted to come across, our reporter Nijah Hood says that a lot of the parents were growing impatient. So another point that Sheriff Ravenel spoke to, he says they had to count every child at the school first to make sure all were accounted for before they moved them all to where they are now, which is the Orangeburg Technology Center, about 2 football fields away. Our Nijah Hood joins us now live from the Technology Center. Nijah, after this press conference now, the first time today we're hearing from the superintendent and from the Orangeburg County Sheriff. What do you make of this information we just heard?
The Orangeburg superintendent, as well as the police chief and the sheriff. They are telling us that there is a person in custody for the shooting. The faculty and the staff at the high school has been applauded for their efficient response in helping parents to become reunited with the students who are here. At this moment, it seems that most of the parents have been reunited, but there still is a very long line down the street of cars who are parked and people who are still waiting. But it looks a lot different than what we saw earlier. There was about 50 people here who were next to us who were standing by anxiously waiting, and it seems now at this point a lot of people have been reunited. But if you listen, you could hear that they are still calling the names of students who are waiting, who are being reunited with their parents. We also are not sure if school will resume session tomorrow as usual or anything of that nature yet. We haven't been told that information yet. We are still waiting for more information. But it definitely seems that the scene is a lot different than what you've seen earlier this evening, that a lot of people have been reunited at this time.
Nijah, I know you've had an opportunity to speak with a lot of parents. Have you had a chance to talk to any of the students? And I hope Nijah can hear me. Nijah, have you had a chance to speak with any of the students who were there at dismissal? Can you hear me, Nijah?
Talk to any of the students who were at dismissal?
We have not gotten the chance to speak to any students, but we have gotten the chance to hear from a parent earlier who said that he was very excited to be reunited with his child, and he said he was praying for the shooter and the shooter's family as well as the other parents who have children who are injured in today's incident. It seems a lot of people are happy to be reunited with their children.
We know this is a fluid situation, so we're going to give you a chance to see if you can grab a parent and a student who can talk to us. So we're going to break away from you for just a second. Hopefully we'll get a chance to hear from a student who is with their parent. Obviously, we need the parent's permission to talk about this situation. So hopefully we'll be able to hear from Nijah and a parent later tonight. But hearing from the superintendent, Dr. Sean Foster, they didn't answer any questions. He applauded his students, his staff. The crisis response plan, according to the superintendent, worked as it has been practiced. But one of the questions one of the journalists asked as soon as he wrapped up his statement is, will there be school tomorrow? Will school go on as expected? And as we heard from Chief Gibbs, they are planning another briefing tomorrow, and hopefully they will be able to answer more questions at that point.
And as soon as we learn more information, we're going to pass it along to you. But in the meantime, our coverage will continue tonight on News 19 at 11. We'll see you then.